The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with alien voices. Representatives from 1,000 worlds sat in curved rows, their forms as diverse as the stars themselves. The tall, graceful Vaylans with their silver skin gleamed under the artificial suns. The hulking Kron delegates stomped their massive feet in rhythm, a sign of amusement among their kind. In the center pit, a small group of humans stood waiting. Ambassador Tom Blake adjusted his simple black suit and looked up at the sea of alien faces. Some had 4 eyes, others had tentacles instead of arms, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. All of them were staring at the humans with barely hidden contempt. "So these are the famous humans," spoke Prime, Chancellor Vex of the Dominion Empire. His voice echoed through the hall's translation systems. "The species that thinks it deserves a seat among the great powers of the galaxy." Laughter rippled through the assembly. The sound was strange. Some aliens chittered, others made deep, rumbling noises, and the energy beings flickered with what passed for humor among their kind. Blake stepped forward. "Honorable Chancellor, humanity has proven its worth through our rapid technological advancement and our contributions to..." "Contributions?" Vex interrupted, his serpentine form coiling with amusement. "You mean your pathetic attempts at space travel? Your crude weapons? Your laughably short lifespans?" The Kron delegate, General Thek, rose from his seat with a thunderous boom. "These soft skins have been in space for what? 200 of their tiny years? We have ruled the void for 50,000. "Indeed," added Counselor Nira of the Crystal Collective, her voice like singing glass. "Why should beings who cannot even leave their own solar system without mechanical aids be given equal status?" Blake felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. "We may be young, but we learn fast. We adapt. You die," said High Priestess Eula of the Eternal Flames. "Your whole species will be dust before our youngest children reach maturity. What lasting impact could such brief creatures possibly have?" The mockery continued for hours. Speaker after speaker rose to list humanity's failings. They called humans weak, short-lived, technologically primitive, and spiritually empty. The Vaylans spoke of humanity's violent history with disgust. The energy beings questioned whether humans even qualified as truly intelligent life. Through it all, the small human delegation stood in silence. Blake clenched his fists. His aide, Captain Lisa Park, placed a warning hand on his arm, but her own jaw was tight with barely controlled anger. The third member of their group, Dr. Alan Ross, simply watched and listened, his mind recording every insult, every slight, every moment of contempt. "Perhaps," suggested Chancellor Vex with mock kindness, "we could offer humanity a junior membership, a probationary status. You could serve as..." "What is your word? Interns?" "Yes, interns to the real civilizations." The hall erupted in what passed for laughter among 1,000 different species. Some delegates literally rolled on the floor. Others expanded to 3 times their normal size in mirth. The crystalline beings chimed like broken bells. Blake had heard enough. He stepped to the center of the speaking circle, his voice cutting through the noise. "We came here in peace," he said, his words carrying clearly through the translation matrix. "We came seeking friendship, partnership, mutual understanding. But I see now that you view us as nothing more than amusing pets." "At least you learn quickly," sneered General Thak. Blake nodded slowly. "Yes, we do learn quickly. Faster than you might think." He looked up at the assembled aliens, meeting as many eyes as he could. "You speak of our short lives as weakness. You mock our young civilization. You laugh at our struggles." His voice grew harder. "But you've made one critical error in your assessment of humanity." The laughter began to die down. Something in the human's tone had shifted. Even the most arrogant delegates sensed a change in the air. "You've mistaken our desire for peace as a sign of weakness, Blake continued. You've confused our youth with helplessness. Most importantly, you've assumed that because we're new to the galaxy, we have nothing to teach you. Chancellor Vex's serpentine head tilted with curiosity. And what exactly could you possibly teach us, little human? Blake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You're about to find out. You see, there's something unique about humanity that your ancient, comfortable civilizations have forgotten. Something that comes from growing up on a death world, from clawing our way to the stars through pure, stubborn will. He paused, letting his words sink in. You're about to learn what happens when you mock a species that has never learned how to quit. Asterisk. The message reached Earth 3 days after the humiliation at the Galactic Council. Ambassador Blake's transmission played on every screen, in every language, to every human settlement, from the moon colonies to the Mars terraforming stations. They laughed at us, Blake's recorded voice said simply. They called us children, pets, amusing insects not worthy of respect. In living rooms across Earth, families watched in growing anger. In the orbital shipyards around Jupiter, construction workers stopped their welding to listen. On the generation ships heading to distant stars, colonists gathered in their common areas. Faces grinned out. President Maria Santos stood before the emergency session of the United Earth Assembly. The question before us is simple, she said. Do we accept their judgment? Do we crawl back to our little corner of space and accept our place as the galaxy's joke? No, the response thundered from 1,000 representatives. Within hours, something extraordinary began to happen. Every human government, corporation, and organization received the same message. Project Prometheus is now active. All resources, all efforts, all minds focused on one goal. Dr. James Wright had been working on fusion engine improvements for civilian transports. Now he found himself leading a team of 10,000 engineers designing weapon systems that could crack moons in half. His peaceful research became the foundation for humanity's new military doctrine. Commander Sarah Kim had spent her career mapping trade routes through safe hyperspace lanes. Suddenly, she was studying every alien ship design, every defensive installation, every weakness in the galaxy's most powerful fleets. Her exploration experience became tactical intelligence of immense value. The transformation was visible everywhere. Earth's massive industrial complexes, built to supply growing colonies and peaceful trade, began producing different kinds of ships. Not the slow, comfortable vessels designed for human families traveling to new worlds, but sleek, deadly craft built for only one purpose. Professor Elena Vasquez stood before her quantum physics students at Luna University. For decades, we've studied the theoretical applications of dimensional folding, she explained. Today, we begin practical applications. Your homework is to design a weapon that can strike targets in different star systems simultaneously. The students didn't question why. None of them did any more. In the asteroid belt, mining operations expanded rapidly. But instead of extracting materials for construction and trade, the massive robotic harvesters began building something else. Long, dark shapes took form in the emptiness between worlds. Ships that looked nothing like humanity's previous designs. Captain Mike Chon stood on the bridge of the first completed vessel. The ship had no name, only a number, Prometheus 001. It was 5 kilometers long, covered in armor plating that could withstand direct hits from fusion bombs, and armed with weapons that existed nowhere else in known space. How many more? He asked his chief engineer. 1,500 in the first wave, came the reply. 10,000 in the second. After that, the engineer shrugged. As many as we need. The alien powers noticed the increased activity, of course. Their surveillance showed human settlements suddenly expanding their industrial capacity. Trade ships began carrying different cargo. But they weren't concerned. Let them build their toys. Chancellor Vex told his advisors. Children often throw tantrums when they don't get their way. General Thack was slightly more cautious. They're constructing military vessels, Chancellor. Perhaps we should investigate military vessels? Vex laughed with the sound of grinding metal. Have you seen their technology? Their most advanced ships are barely capable of interstellar travel. Their weapons couldn't pierce the hull of a cargo hauler. What they didn't understand was that humanity had spent those months in space, not just building ships and trade routes, but watching, learning. Every alien vessel that passed through human space was scanned, analyzed, dissected by sensors. Every piece of alien technology sold to human traders was immediately reverse engineered. Dr. Ross, who had stood silently through the humiliation at the council, now worked in a laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface. Around him, teams of scientists worked with alien materials, alien designs, alien principles of physics. But they weren't copying these technologies. They were improving them. Velans use quantum resonance in their shielding, Ross explained to his team, but they use it defensively. What happens if we reverse the polarity and project it as a weapon? The test results were impressive. Meanwhile, in hidden facilities across human space, soldiers trained with new weapons, new tactics, new technologies. They learned to fight in zero gravity, in the crushing depths of gas giants, in the radiation-soaked void between stars. Captain Park, Blake's former aide, now wore the uniform of humanity's new rapid response force. She stood before a group of volunteers, former colonists, traders, and explorers who had answered the call. They think we're weak because we're young, she told them. They think we're helpless because we're small. They're about to learn that human beings don't just survive. We adapt. We overcome. And we never, ever forget. The first wave of ships was almost ready. Asterisk. The attack came without warning. Admiral Rex Kohler of the Dominion fleet was reviewing patrol reports when his communications officer suddenly went rigid. Sir, we're receiving multiple distress signals from the Outer Rim systems. Pirates? Kohler asked absently, not looking up from his datapad. No, sir. The signals are from hegemony worlds. They're reporting complete destruction of their orbital defenses. Now Kohler looked up. The hegemony controlled 12 systems along the galaxy's edge. Their defensive stations were considered impregnable, massive structures armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. How many systems? The communications officer's voice shook. All of them, sir. 12 systems. Simultaneous attacks. Total loss of contact within 6 hours. Kohler stood slowly. That's impossible. What force could coordinate such an assault? The Kron? The Crystal Collective? Before the officer could respond, new alerts flooded their screens. More systems under attack. Not just hegemony worlds now, but Velan colonies, Kron outposts, even heavily defended core worlds. The pattern was always the same. Ships would appear from hyperspace, unleash devastating attacks, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. But these weren't hit-and-run raids. Entire fleets were being destroyed. Planetary defense grids that had stood for millennia were being torn apart like tissue paper. Chancellor Vex's emergency meeting of the High Council was chaos. Representatives shouted over each other in a dozen languages, their calm superiority replaced by panic. Who dares attack the established powers? Demanded High Priestess Eula. What enemy has such strength? General Thack's image flickered on the main screen from his command ship. My fleets are moving to intercept, but these attackers, their technology is unlike anything we've seen. Their ships appear to bend space itself. Impossible, said Counselor Nira, though her crystalline form flickered with uncertainty. No known species possesses such capability. Vex's serpentine coils writhed with agitation. Get me a visual on these attackers. I want to know who the transmission cut out. Emergency klaxons began wailing throughout the council chambers. A new voice spoke over the communication system. Calm, human, terrifyingly familiar. This is Ambassador Tom Blake of the Human Federation. The hall fell silent. 12 hours ago, humanity began what we call Operation Burning Sky. Your fleets, your defenses, your precious untouchable worlds. They're all fair targets now. Vex found his voice. You cannot possibly have the strength to what? Challenge your mighty civilizations? Blake's voice carried cold amusement. You were right about one thing, Chancellor. We are young. We are new to this galaxy. But you made a critical error in your assessment. On the main display, images appeared. Burning space stations, shattered fleets, defense platforms torn apart by weapons that seemed to tear holes in reality itself. You assumed that because we haven't been in space as long as you, we were somehow limited by your rules, your traditions, your understanding of what's possible. More images flashed by. Alien ships fleeing from Sleek, dark vessels that moved with impossible speed and agility. But here's what you never understood about humanity. We don't just learn from our mistakes. We learn from everyone's mistakes, including yours. General Fax's image reappeared, his massive form bloodied and his ship clearly damaged. Vex, they've broken through our entire defensive line. Their weapons, they're using our own technology against us, but modified, improved. Our shields are useless. Blake continued as if the interruption hadn't occurred. You see, while you were laughing at our crude technology, we were studying yours. Every ship that entered our space, every piece of equipment you sold us, every scan you thought was harmless, all of it became data. The truth was beginning to dawn on the assembled aliens. Their supposed superiority, their advanced civilizations, their ancient knowledge, all of it had been exposed to humanity through centuries of contact. You taught us about quantum resonance shielding, Blake said. So we learned to turn it into a weapon that phases through your defenses. You showed us plasma containment technology. We used it to build fusion cannons that burn hotter than stars. You demonstrated hyperspace navigation. We improved it to create ships that can appear anywhere, anytime. On the screen, a human fleet materialized around a heavily fortified core world. The defensive stations opened fire with everything they had. The human ships simply weren't there when the weapons arrived, having shifted slightly out of phase with normal space. Every strength you possess, we studied. Every weakness you hide, we found. Every limitation you accept, we overcame. The counterattack began. Weapons beyond alien understanding tore through shields designed to stop conventional forces. Ships that should have taken hours to travel between planets appeared instantly wherever they were needed. You wanted to know what a young species could teach you? Blake asked as the destruction continued. We're teaching you now. This is what happens when you mock a species that has spent its entire existence fighting for survival. The galaxy was learning what humanity meant by war. Asterisk. Within 72 hours, 17 major star systems had gone dark. The emergency council session was held on Nexus Prime, the galaxy's most heavily defended world. 5 layers of orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet, each one capable of destroying an entire invasion fleet. The assembled representatives felt safe here, protected by technology that had never failed. They were wrong. Report. Chancellor Vex demanded as Admiral Kohler entered the chamber, his uniform torn and bearing the scorch marks of recent battle. The humans have taken the Kepler sector entirely, Kohler announced. 14 systems, including 3 major shipyards. They're not just attacking randomly anymore. They're taking strategic positions. High Priestess Eula leaned forward, her flame-like form flickering with agitation. How are they moving so fast? Our intelligence says they had fewer than 1,000 ships 6 months ago. They're not using ships as we understand them, Kohler replied grimly. They've weaponized their industrial capacity. Every cargo hauler, every transport, every civilian vessel has been converted. And they're building new ones faster than we can destroy them. General Thak's image appeared on the communication screen, transmitted from his flagship somewhere in the Outer Rim. It's worse than that. They're not just converting existing ships. They're manufacturing new designs we've never seen before. Vessels that seem to ignore several laws of physics. Dr. Nira of the Crystal Collective spoke up, her voice like broken glass. That's impossible. Physical laws are universal constants. Tell that to their ships that phase in and out of normal space. Thak growled. Tell that to their weapons that somehow fire backwards through time to hit targets before they've even been aimed at. The truth was that humanity had done something no other species had thought possible. They had looked at the accepted limitations of galactic technology and simply refused to accept them. In the hidden research stations throughout human space, teams of scientists had taken alien physics and pushed them beyond their intended boundaries. What the aliens saw as absolute limits, humans saw as challenges to overcome. Dr. Ross stood before a massive holographic display showing the galaxy's current status. Red markers indicated human-controlled systems. The red was spreading like an infection. The temporal displacement. Cannons are exceeding all projections, he reported to the War Council. We can now hit targets up to 15 minutes before we fire. President Santos nodded grimly. And the dimensional folding drives? Operational on all Prometheus-class vessels. We can now strike anywhere in the galaxy within 6 hours. The aliens' traditional defensive strategies are completely obsolete. But the humans weren't just winning through superior technology. They were fighting with a ferocity that shocked the galaxy's older civilizations. Captain Park stood on the bridge of her ship as it materialized inside an alien defense grid. Around her, displays showed dozens of enemy vessels opening fire. They're targeting us with everything they have, her tactical officer reported. Good, Park replied calmly. That means they're not shooting at our Marines. On the planet below, human assault troops were landing not with the slow, methodical approach favored by galactic militaries, but with the desperate speed of a species that had learned warfare on a death world. Lieutenant Commander Jake Miller led his squad through the burning streets of an alien city. His orders were simple. Capture the planetary command center. The aliens had expected a siege, a long campaign of attrition. Instead, the humans had bypassed all defenses and struck directly at the heart of their operations. Contact left. One of his soldiers called out. Miller didn't hesitate. Straight through them. We don't have time for a firefight. This was the difference the galaxy's powers were beginning to understand. Their ancient civilizations had developed rules of warfare, accepted casualties, traditional strategies. Humans fought like their survival depended on every single battle, because it did. Back on Nexus Prime, the emergency session was interrupted by a new alert. The outer defense platforms had detected multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the system. Impossible, Vex hissed. Nexus Prime's location is classified at the highest levels. Only council members know these coordinates. Admiral Kohler was already reviewing tactical displays. 200 ships incoming. Estimated arrival in 4 hours. Our defenses will hold, General Thak stated with false confidence. Nexus Prime has never fallen. Your defenses were designed to stop conventional attacks. A new voice said. The assembled aliens turned to see a holographic figure materializing in their chamber. Ambassador Blake stood calmly in their midst, his image transmitted from somewhere in the human fleet, approaching their world. You're probably wondering how we found you, Blake continued. The answer is simple. We've been listening to your communications for months. Every encrypted channel, every classified frequency. Your security was designed to stop other galactic powers who follow your rules. Realization hit them like a physical blow. "We don't follow your rules," Blake said simply. "We never have." The first human ships appeared in the system, and Nexus Prime's invincible defenses opened fire. They missed. The fall of Nexus Prime sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The fortress world that had never been breached, never been threatened, never even been successfully approached by enemy forces, fell in 18 hours. The surrender was broadcast on every frequency in the galaxy. Chancellor Vex himself, the supreme leader of the Dominion Empire, speaking words no one thought they would ever hear. The Galactic Council yields to the Human Federation. But humanity wasn't done. Commander Lisa Park stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed command ship Retribution, a transparent aluminum viewport. She could see the remains of the Kron home fleet, once the most feared military force in known space. Now nothing but expanding clouds of glowing debris. "Status report," she ordered. "The Kron homeworld has surrendered," her communications officer replied. "The Velen Senate is requesting terms. The Crystal Collective has withdrawn all forces to their core systems." Park nodded grimly. "And the others?" 17 major civilizations have offered unconditional surrender. 23 more are requesting negotiation. The rest ... The officer paused. "The rest have gone completely dark. We think they're too afraid to even send messages." It had taken humanity 6 months to reshape the galaxy. 6 months to prove that age, experience, and ancient wisdom meant nothing when faced with pure, focused determination. Dr. Ross materialized as a hologram beside Park. From his laboratory on Earth, he was coordinating the final phases of humanity's expansion. "The retrofit programs are ahead of schedule," he reported. "We've integrated captured alien technology with our own designs. The next generation of ships will be even more capable." Park almost smiled. "More capable than ships that can phase through matter and shoot backwards through time?" "Much more capable," Ross replied seriously. "We've learned to modify reality itself." This was what the galaxy's ancient powers had never understood. They had reached a comfortable level of technological sophistication and stopped pushing boundaries. Their civilizations were thousands of years old. They had grown complacent, satisfied with their achievements. Humanity had been in space for barely 2 centuries, but they had never stopped pushing, never stopped learning, never stopped asking, "What if?" In the ruins of the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Blake stood alone. The great hall that had once echoed with the laughter of 1,000 species was empty now. The curved seats that had held representatives from across the galaxy sat vacant. A holographic communication activated, showing President Santos back on Earth. "Tom," she said quietly, "it's over. They're all either surrendered or too scared to fight. The galaxy is ours." Blake nodded slowly. "So what now?" "We've proven our point. We've shown them that underestimating humanity was a mistake. What do we do with a galaxy that fears us?" "We do what we always do," Santos replied. "We adapt. We learn. We become better." The truth was, humanity had never wanted to conquer the galaxy. They had wanted respect, partnership, the chance to contribute to something greater than themselves. The violence, the destruction, the overwhelming display of force, all of it had been reaction to mockery and contempt. Blake activated the galaxy-wide communication system, the same network that had once carried alien laughter at humanity's expense. "To all surviving civilizations," he began. "This is Ambassador Blake of the Human Federation. The war is over. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, alien beings listened with a mixture of fear and hope. 6 months ago, you laughed at us. You called us weak, primitive, unworthy of your respect. You were wrong, but that wasn't your greatest mistake." Blake paused, choosing his words carefully. Your greatest mistake was assuming that because we came to you in peace, we were incapable of war. Because we sought friendship, we were somehow helpless. Because we were young, we were ignorant. The communication carried to every inhabited world, every space station, every ship still functioning in the galaxy. But here's what you need to understand now. Humanity has never been driven by hatred or conquest. We don't want to rule over you. We never did. Hope began to flicker in alien hearts. We wanted partnership. We wanted to learn from you, to share with you, to build something magnificent together. That offer still stands. Blake looked around the empty council chamber one last time, but the terms have changed. There will be no more mockery, no more dismissal, no more treating any species as inferior based on age, size, or technology. The galaxy will be a place where all civilizations are judged by their actions, not their assumptions. He smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a warm expression. Welcome to humanity's galaxy. We hope you'll help us make it better than it was before. The Human Federation had lit the galaxy on fire. Now, they would help it heal. The end asterisk.